comes to your mind when you think of privilege? An advantage point? Entitlement? Perks, perhaps? Privilege is defined as certain social advantages, benefits, or degrees of prestige and respect that an individual has by virtue of belonging to certain social groups. So now you're probably thinking, oh well, yeah, entitlement to certain things. But let's look deeper. Are you privileged? Answer is yes you are. Everyone has some degree of privilege. Privilege is when a man can walk alone at night without the fear of getting assaulted. Privilege is when white people don't have to worry about them getting harassed for their skin color. Privilege is when straight people don't have to worry about being illegal in certain countries. Privilege isn't the presence of perks and benefits. It's the absence of obstacles and barriers. It doesn't mean that you don't struggle, that you don't have problems, that your life is easy. It means who you are hasn't made it harder. Let's look at some kinds of privileges. First being male privilege. Being a cisgender male is a global privilege in a patriarchal society. It is not being paid less than your co-workers for the same job, not having your opinions devalued, your intelligence questioned because of your gender. It's never having your appearance policed. It's not having your healthcare rights up for debate, your representation up for debate. It's not being seen as an object to control just because of your gender. Then we have white and color privilege. It is not having to worry about law enforcement not protecting you, not getting harassed and discriminated just because of the color of your skin. It's being represented everywhere. It's not being followed around stores, not fearing the police, not getting harsher sentences for the same crimes, all just because of the color of your skin. And the closer you are to looking white, the more of these privileges you'd have. SOCIO-ECONOMIC and class privilege. It's never having to choose between necessities. It's being able to afford emergencies. It's being able to have a suitable living standard, not having to be anxious about paying off debt. It's having the time to seek opportunities for betterment. It's being more likely to be perceived as innocent in court because of your class background. Then there's straight and cisgender privilege. It's the ability to be around your significant others in public. It's never having to hide your sexuality or your gender identity. It's not getting harassed because of who you identify as. It's never having your right to love up for political debate. It's being accepted into the society without any fear. It's all religions accepting your identity. It's not ever having to justify your orientation to anyone. Then, religious privilege is when your religion is dominant in your country. It's not having the fear of being persecuted because of your religion. You don't have to worry about not being able to practice your religion freely. And all of these are just some examples of privilege. It exists in a lot of different spheres. There's able-bodied privilege, there's birthplace privilege, there's thin privilege, there's beauty privilege. If you look at it, it really is about your life not being harder because of who you are. It's not having to suffer and struggle for the same things others would. And the absence of these barriers are really hard to notice. If you have a hard time realizing your privileges, focus on what you don't have to go through. You have to understand that you don't have specific problems that come from systems of oppression. It can be uncomfortable realizing you have advantages over other people through no fault of theirs, but working through this discomfort will allow you to use your privilege for better outcomes. So, how do you identify with your privilege? First, empathize. Get an understanding of individual experiences. In conversations about privilege, don't get defensive, and cultivate an open dialogue. Acknowledge your privilege and learn about it. Listen more than talk when having conversation with the marginalized groups. Second, self-reflection. Every single one of us will be able to undermine the system of oppression by acknowledging our privileges. The more open you are to critically think about your privilege, the more comfortable you become using your privilege to create a social change. That is intersectionality. It's about how people with overlapping identities experience systems of power. Just because we don't have certain privileges doesn't mean we don't benefit from other kinds of privileges. Realizing this makes it easier to work with people who share our privileges and those who don't. So the question is, how can you use your privilege? If you have a certain privilege, you have the power to speak up on behalf of those who don't and can't. Use the ordinary nature of who you are as a source of power. Learn about what other people who lack your privilege encounter in their lives. Look for opportunities to speak and act. Ask questions, raise issues, and add perspectives. Help educate other people around you. Don't abuse your privilege. Performative allies act with self-interest, such as wanting to be rewarded for being compassionate, progressive, and intellectual. Your privilege is an opportunity to create positive change, not for using it to your own benefit. Remember, privilege is when you think something's not a problem because it's not a problem for you personally. If you don't have to think about it, then it's a privilege.